Welcome to Table Talk Tuesday. I'm Lisa McElby and this is Phil Schell. We're here to talk to you today because we interviewed the county assessor for Jeffco. His name's Scot Kersgaard. And in that interview, we just have some highlights that we would like to point out to you guys.
Yeah, Scott was very interesting. He discussed the new algorithms and computer programs they have that do the actual assessments. You know, they reassess property in the odd years, and so here we are in an odd year. I think he told us that the new assessments have to be to the homeowners by May 1st, and so you guys should be receiving those at any time. The assessments, however, are public record at this point, and they are on the website, and we'll give you a link to that down below in the comments. He did say that on average they expected that the values would be going up about 10% across the board on residential property.
He did. And he also mentioned that it's from the year prior. So that June prior, correct?
Correct.
So you'll see like from 2018 to now, on how from June 2018 to now, and you'll see that those property values have increased.
Yeah, and basically what he said is that their job is to determine what the property's value was on June 30th, I believe, of the previous year. So it'll be June 30th of 2020 compared to the previous assessment, which would have been June 30th of 2018. So you can see that there's, you know, our property values have come up pretty good. That doesn't mean your taxes are going to go up that much because we do have the Tabor Amendment in place. So that kind of controls how much the taxes can go up. We did, however, have the Gallagher Amendment that was part of our taxes, and that has been amended or reversed with the last election. And the Gallagher Amendment basically said that 45% of all the taxes collected by the state, it couldn't be more than 45% were based on residential properties. 55% had to come from other properties. So that amendment now has been repealed. So you could see residential valuations and property taxes come up beyond the 45% at this point.
Yes, and that also applies to special taxing districts. So you'll see that bullet point in there as well. If you are currently living in new construction and stuff like that, you'll see those differences. So we can point that out in the video.
Yeah, and the assessor's office really isn't responsible for collection of the taxes of the special improvement districts. Their job is to make sure that the maps are correct, that the properties that should be in them are in them, and the ones that shouldn't be in them are not in them. But if you're concerned or questioning what the property taxes can do within the special improvement district, he suggested we go to the individual municipality that controls that or issue those bonds. So if you have any questions, feel free to call us and we'll be happy to discuss it. We've got a link to the overall interview and video with the assessor below. I think you'll find it quite interesting. And again, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help in any way we can.
You will be getting these in the mail in the next 2 weeks. So give us a call. We're here to discuss.
We repealed Gallagher last year, and so the assessment rate is no longer floating with the commercial rate. It's now set by the legislature, and it's at 7.15% this year. And I guess we're told it's going to be there theoretically forever, but it may change again. But it's not just automatically going down every year as it was. You know, and the effect that that Gallagher had on Colorado taxes, were that in 1982, if you owned a $500,000 property that was a house, you paid $10,000 in taxes, but if it was a business, you paid just about $15,000 in taxes. And over the course of time, that ratio changed a lot because the assessment rate kept falling on houses. It stayed the same on commercial, but the house bill kept going down. So finally, it would have been $3,500 for the house and still $14,500 for the commercial property. And this imbalance is probably one of the reasons Gallagher was repealed. You know, I try not to get into tax policy or politics too much. I feel, and not every assessor agrees with me on this. I know a lot of them are pretty involved in tax policy, if you will. But I look at it like the assessor's job is pretty much to be a technocrat. I mean, I ran in a political race, but whether I'm a Democrat or a Republican shouldn't matter. All that should matter is that we value properties at what they're worth. That's the job of the assessor. And so the assessment rate can go up or down, and it doesn't affect what we do here, which is just value the properties. Now, you're probably all here because notices of value are going out. And that's what makes my job interesting. Once every 2 years, people care about the county assessor. And other than that, they don't really care very much, most people. And nor should they. I mean, honestly, before I started thinking about running, I didn't even know who the county assessor was. And my theory on that is, to the extent that people know who the county assessor is, they generally don't like him or her. So being an incumbent is probably not an advantage, but that's just a sidelight there. So we mail all property owners a notice of value roughly the 1st of May. By statute, they're supposed to receive them on May 1st. Some will and some won't. They may be a few days late, and the state is okay with that. We actually have them all on our website right now. So you can go online and see your notice of value, and you can direct your clients online to see their notice of value before they even get it in the mail. They can't file an appeal until May 1st, but they can look at it. So that is a good thing. Now, valuing properties. You know, a lot of people want to know how we do it. You know, mass appraisal is different than fee appraisal. It's different than a realtor doing a market analysis for somebody. We look at every sale in the county. And in some cases, we go beyond Jefferson County to find sales, if we need to find comparables. For most houses, that isn't necessary. For most properties, that isn't necessary. We can deal strictly in Jefferson County. But the point is, with over 200,000 properties to value, it's a matter of mass appraisal. It's a matter of looking at all of the sales, looking at the trends over time, and we actually create value tables, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And discovery is a part of that job. We look at deeds, we look at building permits, we look at TD 1000s, and I will talk about those more later. And we do site visits. We also do aerial imagery, which is to say we hire a company to fly over the county, and they fly in both directions, north to south and east to west, in a grid pattern over the entire county. And because they go both directions, we can actually see properties from the side as well as straight down, so we can see how tall they are as well as how wide they are. We can see decks that have been added without a permit. We can see houses built in the middle of nowhere without a permit. So we gather information from those, those ways. And then we have to value all of these properties. And one thing about mass appraisal is it does remove appraiser bias, because any appraiser or realtor or property owner is going to be a little bit biased when they choose comps. For some purposes, you want to choose comps that show a high value. For other purposes, you might want to show comps that show a low value. And so there's always a certain amount of bias in an appraisal, I think, but we're looking at every single sale. So we're not, we don't have the bias that way. And we have signed a contract with a company called Appraisalist, and it's not on our website yet. We're very close to having it live, but it is a software that will allow people to see a visual map of their neighborhood with their house highlighted, and it'll show every other house in the neighborhood that is sold recently. And they can click on all of those images and they can see that the house a block away just sold for X price and is the exact same size as theirs, or not. But the purpose of this software, from our point of view, it's got some uses for appraisers, but it really will make it easier for people, property owners, to decide whether they should appeal. It'll make it easier for them to see what the comps are. And because it's a software program, there's even less bias. It's all just math. There's nobody there trying to show you the ones that support our value. So I really love this software, and the counties that have gotten it have told me that it reduces their appeals and it increases customer satisfaction. So I'm very excited about that. And value tables are one of the things that play into mass appraisal. It's just we have a statistician on staff, basically, a modeler, if you will, who looks at all the sales and then looks at all of the elements of those sales to figure out, what is a remodeled kitchen worth compared to an original kitchen? What is a remodeled bath worth? What is 3 bathrooms versus 2 bathrooms worth? And we gather all of that into these elaborate tables, and those tables are used in valuing every residential property in the county. to one extent or another. A $5 million house, we're going to look at more individually than a $400,000 house, because there are fewer of them and there are fewer comps also. And while we look at every property, we really hone in neighborhood by neighborhood. And we've got a staff of appraisers, each of whom specialize in certain areas. So they look at the sales in your neighborhood and apply them to your house, basically. Residential values, as you know, just keep going up. And I can tell you this year, our new reappraisal, we're going to be about 11 or 12% higher than the appraisal 2 years ago. So in residential, and I think most of you in real estate would say that's probably conservative. Probably values have gone up more than 12% in the last 2 years. Maybe not. Maybe you'll tell me we're being too aggressive. But that's what we've seen. And I think most appraisers' offices tend to value a little bit on the low side for a lot of reasons, one of which is we have to be able to defend our values. And so if we come in a little bit low, it's easier to defend them. Now, this is an important slide that every realtor wants to know and wants their client to know. You get your notice of value on May 1st, and then you have a month to file an appeal. And this year, we are encouraging people to do that online. And we are trying to make it very easy for them to do it online. It's better for us in a COVID world, and it's better and easier for everybody. And if they can't do it online for whatever reason, they can go online and make an appointment to come in and meet with somebody, or to have a phone conversation with an appraiser. And we've been doing that since COVID started, not just for appeals, but for any kind of customer interaction. Make an appointment. And the advantage of that, besides just limiting the spread of COVID, is that when you have a meeting or a phone call with an appraiser, they're ready for you. They're familiar with your file. They're familiar with your property. So it's an easier, faster conversation than if people just show up at our door, which they used to do, and with a stack of papers and want to meet with somebody. And they could always meet with somebody, but it might be somebody who's learning their property on the fly. And you make an appointment and, we will know your property before you get here or before you make the phone call. So that's I think, a huge improvement for everybody. Last year was an off year, so we only received 1,100 appeals. Normally it's about 10 times that. Some people say the assessor sets the value. I don't think of it that way. I don't think we set the value. I think the market sets the value. It's our job to investigate the market. It's our job to understand the market. It's our job, just like realtors and just like appraisers in the fee world, to simply look at all of the comps and say, what is the market doing? And so that's our job. We don't raise the values. We don't lower the values. If we're doing our job right, we just report what the market is doing, and we better be doing our job right. I mean, that's important to me, and I think we are. We're going to get some wrong. I think every assessor's office is going to get some wrong. Some things fall through the cracks for one reason or another when you have, 250,000 properties to value. But it's our goal to be correct and to be fair and honest with everyone. Now, taxes. Taxes are set by the taxing authorities. And in Jefferson County, there are more than 100 taxing authorities. The county is one such authority, the school district, the fire districts, rec districts, various neighborhood associations, local improvement districts, things of that nature. And they set the mill levies for each district. And people who are actually concerned about taxes, who actually think their taxes are too high, never mind their value, but if they think their taxes are too high, they need to go to the meetings of those organizations that actually set taxes. That means county commissioner meetings and school board meetings and fire district board meetings. And that's where you can have the most effect on taxes. Unfortunately, by the time most people know what their taxes are, it's too late to do that. So, again, all they can do is appeal their value. And if we got their value right, we're not going to lower it just because they're appealing. So, they can be more effective going to these districts and having conversations with the elected leaders of those districts about their taxes. So if you have a $400,000 value today, the assessment rate for residential is 7.15%, which means the assessed value that you're paying taxes on is $28,600, compared with a commercial property of the same price, the assessed value would be $116,000. Then you get your mill levies, and you multiply it by your mill levies, and that gives you your tax amount. And everybody is going to have a slightly different mill levy. I mean, everybody on your block may have the same mill levy, but sometimes these boundaries go right through blocks. Sometimes they go through properties even, and that becomes a bit of a nightmare for this office and for some of the taxing authorities, but it happens. Overall, Colorado property taxes are among the lowest in the nation. And I know that this picture here only shows ones that are higher. And this is a few years old, I think 2017. And it's the median tax bill for those counties at that time. So Jefferson was lower than all of these counties. But I can tell you, because I've looked at national data, that residentially, Jefferson County is in the bottom 10% for property taxes for residential properties. Commercial properties were in the bottom 40%. We're, still better than most of the country, but not near as good as with residential. Apartment buildings, we are the lowest in the country. And that is because we're one of the few states in the country that taxes apartment buildings as residential. Most states above 4 units or so are taxed as commercial. And I suppose the legislature did that to keep rents down. And I suppose it's effective. I mean, if you quadrupled the taxes on every apartment building, rents would probably go up. I own a rental property myself, and I can tell you I don't raise rents because taxes go up. I only raise rents because the market will bear it. That's free enterprise. I can't always recoup my costs, but we try to follow the market. Now, in this $450,000 value, that's prior to this reassessment. So it shows 2020, but that number is going to go up. So the average value in Jeffco is going to be somewhat higher than that on this next reassessment. This is a rental property that I own. And I use a rental rather than my house I live in, so you can't come by with eggs and tomatoes. But it shows how the mill levy has changed on that property over time. And you'll see the trend has been pretty steady. The high was 95 mills or so in 2014, and the low was a few years later. But overall, that particular house has been about 90 mills. The actual value has gone up and up and up. And again, in 2020, it'll be another 10 or 12% higher than that probably. And taxes owed. While mill levy stayed about the same, taxes have gone up. And that's because the value has gone up. So in Jefferson County, the school district gets about half of all property taxes, 48% to be exact, looking at this chart. The county gets about a fourth of the tax dollars, and then special districts, metro districts, and cities get the rest. So again, people concerned about taxes. The two big players here are the school district, the county itself, and then for some people, the fire district. And those are the places people need to go if they want to talk about taxation. The county's mill levies, you can see, have not gone up at all in the last 5 years. They've been at 23, 24 the whole time. Property taxes have gone up because values have gone up. School district, the mill levies have gone up. And we all know a couple of years ago, voters approved by very narrow margins some increases there. So the school district is getting more money than it was in the past by a fairly wide margin. And I'm not making any editorial comments about that. These are just numbers. A lot of you represent seniors or maybe disabled vets who can get an exemption on their property taxes. It averages about $600 for anybody who qualifies. I know a couple of years ago when I wrote this slide, the legislature was considering bills that would change the senior exemption. And I just spoke with a state legislator who has been one of the leaders, if you will, in wanting to do that. And he told me he still wants to do it. It hasn't happened. I don't know if it will happen. But basically, the change would make it portable so that somebody doesn't lose it when they move. And it would also make it probably means tested so that somebody earning a lot of money might not get it, and somebody earning almost nothing might get more. But again, that's a legislative matter. All assessors' offices do are administer this program. We give people this tax break, and then the state reimburses us. So whatever amount of exemptions we give, we calculate it and keep records, and the state pays us. So it is a state program, not a county program. It is the same in every county. People must be 65 and have lived in their home for 10 years or more, and applications are due each year by July 15th. Only one person in the couple needs to be 65. And you can only get it on one house, the house you live in. TD 1000s. I always get questions about this. And the main thing about this is, well, a couple of things. Number one, we're never going to send your client a blank form and ask them to do it again after the closing table. That's not going to happen. And I was a realtor before I did this. And, we've all sat at closing tables where somebody says, you might get another one, so keep this so you can fill it out exactly the same way. That's not going to happen, at least not in Jeffco.
When did that change, Scott?
I don't know that it ever did. I mean, I don't know, right? I've been assessor since 2009.
Because I know I received one 12 years ago when I bought my house.
Okay. Well, I know Jeffco has not been doing it since I've been here, and they weren't doing it when I got here. And I don't know why they would do it. I mean, I don't see the purpose of it, frankly. There's no need to trick people or anything like that. What we're looking for with the TD 1000 is just to ensure that the sale is representative of the market, i.e. there's not a huge amount of personal property included, and that it's an arm's length transaction. We want to know if you sold your house to your son, to your daughter, to your cousin. And if you did, if you got market value, that's fine. But if it's not arm's length, then we're going to take a real hard look at it. And with, in any given 2-year cycle, we're going to get 20,000 or so sales. So we don't need every sale in terms of building our model, if you will. And we will just throw some of those sales out if they don't look representative of the market. And so it'll have no effect on that property value. It'll have no effect on anybody's value. It just won't be used. And you might hear my voice getting scratchy. I need to drink water all the time. I've got a paralyzed vocal cord, which I've had since I was about 20 years old, when I got an elbow to the neck in a basketball game. And I probably didn't even get the rebound. I also broke an arm, but that's life. So personal property, you guys all know the definitions of personal property, I think. I don't need to go through this too much. I am going to email this presentation to Phil and anybody else so that you can distribute it to people who need it, want it. And a lot of these are fine lines, obviously. A security system that is owned and installed as part of the property. Hot tubs can go either way. Some are pretty permanent and some are not. So again, we're really just looking for anomalies and any indication that it was not an arm's length sale, any indication that it was not a market sale. So that is the end of my presentation. And I would love to talk about COVID. I would love to talk about anything people want to talk about.